gonna clamp that when I get it right. Check your clamp. Alright, hold on. Right here. Yeah, we need 12 inches. All the way to the edge. Yep, right here.
It ain't very tight.
Want to tighten it up a little bit more?
What's that? I mean, what's the whole deal?
Self-tap screws. We need the impact gun.
Impact gun?
Yeah. With 8mm. Alright, we get drilled with the wire wheel.
Oh, get ready to stop. Better burn the piss out of it. All right, so basically before we started, we had 12 inches from the bottom of our door to the, see here, the top of our line, or no, the bottom of our line. We marked it like right at 12. So we're looking now that we hopefully have that. We don't have like 13 or 12 and a half or something. So that's 12, 12. That would actually shorten up a little. That's like a 16th shy of 12. It's like an 8th shy maybe, or no, a 16th shy. And that's 12. All right, so I'm gonna show you how the flange looks, but don't get too discouraged on your fit up if your part is off a 16th or so. Basically, I like the ends to be, you know, pretty accurate because the ends are really what you see. But at center, you're not going to see that little bit of up and down the way the bottom of the door is angled and the gap between the rocker and all that. And you don't even know if the rocker is straight first off. So your gap could end up looking perfect, or you could have a perfect line down the bottom of the door and then it still look like crap because the rocker's not straight. You got to remember this car was put together in the 70s and they exactly weren't very precise. Some measurements have been known to be off to a half an inch to 3/4, especially when you get inside trunks and packaging trays and stuff like that. Don't get too discouraged. As you roll this metal over, it tends to want to move, especially in the center. There's really no other way to do it. These pieces are very cheap aftermarket pieces. I don't remember what he paid for these, but I want to say around 100, 150 for both of them together. So they weren't like 50, 60 a piece or something. They were very cheap. They're made out of cheap galvanized metal, and that hurts the welding. It makes the welding really hard. And the breaks on the edges are extremely sloppy. So even the edges around that, they were not broke sharp. if that makes sense, if you've ever tried to bend metal over. If it's basically like a curved radius, it's harder to bend precisely than if it's broke at a perfect 90 and you hammer it over. So if these things, if the corners where the 90 is, if that corner would be way tighter of a radius, like literally sharp, like a sharp 90, then the flange would fold over really nicely and easily. But when they're just pressed into like a mold, basically kind of sloppy, you're not going to get that good of results. So don't get too stressed out about it. Let me show you how the inside of ours look. We're having to deal with some rust on the inside of the doors. Remember, if you caught an earlier episode, I showed you how bad these doors were. So this has not been fun or easy by any means. So our flange is rolled over really good, nice and tight. The air hammer definitely works great. Now there is a special tool, a dolly and a hammer for doing the door skins. I have that tool, but guess where it's at? At the house. So that's not a tool that we use commonly here. I got it at home because it's more of like a customizing hot rod tool versus kind of like the day-to-day collision repair on this. We're not scanning a door on, what is this, a Kia Rio or whatever, and this is a Soul. Like, you're just not scanning doors. You go to the junkyard and get one. So it's at the house. But this door is ate up with rust still. He knows it. We've opted to just roll with it versus replacing the door, because then you can have fitment issues on the door. It's kind of fitment issues is going to kind of be your thing with like doing a restoration like this. You get an aftermarket door and you have no rust, but you got fitment issues. You use your standard door and you got rust issues, and you probably gonna have fitment issues. So it's like either way you're gonna have fitment issues, man. It's just what it is. But we've got these all welded up. I've got this joined all nice and good. It's not grinded out. That's where it is cut so that it can roll in two different directions from this radius, which needs to be straightened out a little, and this one needs to be tightened up. You got it cut there. Put 2 spot welds here. We'll get them, and then we'll also do these corners all the way up, and we're gonna do nothing across the bottom except for seam seal it. It is pinched in there really tight. That can't come off. It can't move. We'll put some spot welds here to lock the corners in. This right here is just a never boogered up rust repair. Just had to feed some MIG in, man. Like, that's just the name of the game when you're dealing with this. It looks like there's rust about to start here. But we're not chasing no more, because he basically said that, you know, we were going to leave some of the rust in the door bottoms and just roll with what we can on the outside. This stuff gets expensive. This is really expensive. Like, to restore one of these cars 100%, you practically have to be rich, man. Like, you got to sink a lot of money into this where it don't even make sense. All of this bottom of this flange, it's kind of hard to see, but it will be wavy just from the hammering on it and everything. So we have to put this back on the car, and then we have to hammer and dolly the edges to the car. Yesterday we got our doors back installed on this thing so that we could start checking the fitment on the edges. Now this part of the job really sucked because it just straight up bogs you down. The metal work was double of what I expected by far. The door gaps are not perfect. So we rehung the door. Of course, all of our door gap is pretty good on the existing part. It's not perfect by any means, but from here up is factory, and this is factory, and so that looks good. But when we move down here, see right there where our two meet, where it gets big. So I'm pretty sure that when this got cut, basically this skin moved in just a little bit. Now it's been hit here. It's very thick with filler. There's probably 1/4 of an inch thick of filler here that we're gonna have to grind off and redo and taper into our new panel. But we're good down here, so our point pretty much actually is a little bit tighter, which a little bit can be grinded off that, looks like. Matches here. Our bottom down here, this area right here is good. Okay, nothing really to be done to that. We just need this area that opens up just a little bit. And actually, it's like this part right here sticks out more than this right here. You kind of see how it's funky. So what we're gonna do is come from about right here to here and just weld this edge up with a lot of weld, and then grind it to fit. So we're really close. We just want to straighten it out. The front side, we tested the fender yesterday, and the same story, is it really curves in right here at this joint. The fender, however, is an absolute nightmare to fit on the car with all of this. So trying to put it on with this ender fender sitting here, and with all of this wiring and everything that is in place here, and trying to sag it down and fit the fender on, we got it on. It's just not as pleasant as if the inner fender was out of the way. If all the wiring was unhooked, folded over, the inner fender was taken out of the way, and then the fender put on, it'd be breeze just to get them big inner fenders out of the way. But this one has a ton of stuff screwed to it. Like, there's just tons of wires bolted and hoses and everything, so I can't easily just unbolt this stuff. It's gonna be so time consuming to unbolt that stuff. I just cannot undo all of my man's wiring and lines and stuff to fit these fenders on, just for test fit. Now, if we were putting them on final, then I'd have to deal with it. I'd have to tape stuff up and I'd have to deal with it. Me and Nate could get it done, because we did fit this one yesterday. We just did not check, or we just didn't final install it. We just took it off. And we didn't do that side because there's so many lines on it. But what we plan to do is we're gonna fit up the rear of the doors real fast and get them all grinded out where they're in the correct shape. And then we're gonna take the doors off the car, and we're gonna fit the doors to the fender on the bench. So we know that there's enough movement in the fender to get your gap right, whether you need to come backwards or forward to get your spacing right. All we need, just like over there, is we need the same shape. So we need a door shaped the same as what's next to it. So we need this door shaped the same as the quarter panel. That's what we're going to work on. So we're going to do the door to the quarter on the car. This one looks pretty good. You can see it's, well, I don't even know if the camera ain't even really showing it yet. You can see the gap's bigger here and bigger at that point a little bit. So we just need to straighten it out. It needs to be flat wheeled and grind and welded, all of this edge until we get this edge like we want it. Then we take the doors off, and I'm gonna show you how to fit your door to your fender off the car. All right, so I think this side is pretty good. Oh, this corner needs to be knocked in a little. I know it's really hard to tell on the camera because I'd have to like roll the camera all up. This corner actually needs to go in some, but looking down it looks pretty even. Camera really don't pick it up. Once we get this off, I think I am gonna put a couple tacks in the bottom of the skin. So we'll grind a couple little spots clean in here and just put little tiny tacks, and then we'll seam seal the bottom of the door. We're not gonna weld the whole bottom of the door. Let's knock this corner in a little, and then I think we're good. I grinded back that. So that door gap looks really good now, actually. I think it's good. Just basically got to repeat the same process on the other side. Need some nozzle dipping gel. Guess where it's at? The house. All right, so we got our doors and epoxy primer on Friday, but I taped up the very edge because we need to stack a little bit of weld on there to straighten that out. But not enough weld where I wanted to risk my Monday of then having wet doors and I can't do any body work on them. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna get to the body work on the doors, but that's why I put them in epoxy primer. They're gonna have to go back through epoxy primer again anyway, just like the fenders, multiple filler primers, all that stuff. But I just wanted to lock some down Friday and before I wrapped up and got out of here. And so that's what we did. This is our setup. By what I mean by we're just gonna check to make sure that the door edges match. So you can do this off the car just like this once you shim up your fender and your door, because the fender, you can set the gap in and out on the car. We can't do nothing about that. That's already pre-done. That is what it is. But what we can control is our gap between here. So what we need to do now is all we have to do is hold our fender up here, and then we're less likely to scratch and tear everything up. And then we just get this right. So you can see how the gap is really big there, and then it goes back pretty tight all the way. It's equal because the fender matches the same curve of the door. So down here is pretty good. The only spot that we really need to add it in is just right here in the center. So this is perfect for this. If you're trying to make sure that your door matches your fender, then you don't have to have the car. You don't have to hang everything on the car. You can actually just do it on the bench. Now, to do the back of that door, of course, as you've seen, you got to go to the quarter. So you're going to have to hang the door for that, but not the front. So now trying to do this step on the car will be an absolute nightmare for you. You have to think when you have the fender on, what does the edge of the door do when the door opens? It goes inwards. It doesn't swing outwards like the gap against the quarter panel where you can easily work it. So it's going to swing inwards, meaning every single time you want to work on the edge of the door, you're going to have to take the fender off the car. Every time you want to check it, you're going to have to take the fender off the car. sometimes, such as this situation with all of these wires and hoses and everything in the way, it is not easy. It is a big ordeal. And so sometimes that's when it's just way easy to use this method to get your shape of the edge of your door to match. And that's why we chose to do it this way versus fighting with them fenders on and off the car 50 times. Well, that right there looks pretty good in the gap. Look how good that looks. It's nice and symmetrical. Fits the same curvature as the fender. That looks good. All right, so we are enjoying this lovely day that it is. I love this weather. I don't even know what words to put in. So we're gonna keep moving forward with these. Now, to be honest with you, I'm a little bit burnt out on this project. I am. I will admit it. I'm a little bit burnt out on this project. I've been working hard every single day. I haven't let up. We've been going at it. It was a lot more than was expected, but that's just how this stuff rolls. The body is in the primer, as you've seen. We got a couple little tiny rust spots to weld up, but the welding and the rust repair is just starting to just feel just so heavy and just like we can't get away from it. I really want to get into the paint and the body work, and you have to do things obviously before you do the paint and body work, and that's where we're at. But thankfully we are done with the doors now. Now, normally I wouldn't go into the doors. Normally I would switch to the body. You would do all the welding up and then kind of transition into the paint and body work. That way you're kind of in welding mode and painting mode. But with us being a body shop, I can switch back and forth super easy. All the tools are right here ready to go. I don't have to cover stuff up in my garage or like you'd have to do at your house possibly. So we're going to go ahead and start slinging some body filler on these doors and try to get these doors where they are flat and where we can put them in primer. Then we could put these to the side once they are like ready for the final blocking and paint, and they can be shrinking back while then we move back to the car body to finish the welding stuff. So that's going to kind of give me a breather from the grinder and the welder, because me and the grinder and me and the welder don't have an excellent relationship right now. I'm kind of tired of seeing it, honestly. Okay, you've got your etching primer all down, and you're like, this is the start of the struggle of these edges right here. You're wanting to stop, go put it back in the paint booth, blow a little etching primer over this edge and everything. And the question is do you really have to do that? The answer is no, you do not have to do that. Now, some body fillers, higher end nice shop fillers, are direct to metal fillers, meaning they will bite direct to metal. But majority of all fillers, beyond what anybody says, will bite the metal if it's scuffed up good. So this little bit, I purposely take this very small on the edge and left just a very little amount because this is extremely tore up with a mixture of 36 grit and 80 grit. So there are two types of adhesions in the body shop world. You have chemical adhesion and mechanical adhesion. Mechanical adhesion always means that there's scratches and gouges so rough in the metal or the plastic or the body filler, whatever it is, that the product you're putting on will bite into them scratches and them gouges and it will hang on. So wet sanding your stuff and slicking it out really slick can sometimes actually be a bad thing because you could be making it where it's harder for the product to stick to it. So most of the time, if you have 36 grit, 80 grit scratches or anything below 80 grit scratches, a lot of stuff is going to stick to it. It just is. This tiny bit on this edge of this door is going to be perfectly fine rolling just like this. And I wanted to address this because this is where a lot of people get really confused and bogged down. Now, would we leave the whole entire door in metal and bodywork it? Not really, okay? When you have that big of an area, you might as well go ahead and play it safe and lock it down with epoxy primer. You can buy body filler, like I said, it goes direct to metal, and then you won't need epoxy primer. But there's a mixture of old fillers, old paint, and metal on there, so epoxy locks that down, and now we're stacking on top of our epoxy. So everything under our epoxy, we don't have to worry about mixing with our job because we've put a barrier between it. We didn't necessarily put the epoxy on there to make stuff stick to the metal, if that makes sense. We kind of put it on there to make a barrier and lock everything down. So we're going to go ahead. I am going to scuff up my epoxy. I'm probably going to go ahead and just run over this with, I don't know, 80 grit on the DA sander real fast and just scuff this up, and then we're going to start troweling on filler. This is where we're going to do huge swipes, lots of filler, and we're going to block everything nice and straight. Now this right here should ruffle some feathers. Mixing body filler on the door, that should definitely ruffle some feathers. So we should get some comments in the comment section, possibly calling me a hack or it shouldn't need that much filler, just all kinds of comments. Don't even know where it's going to come from, can't predict them, but this should definitely get some buzz going in the comment section. The body filler doesn't care where it's mixed at. So it could be mixed on your bed, on your comforter. You could go mix it on your pillow if you feel like laying down while you're doing it. It doesn't care where it's mixed at. Now, if you do mix it on something that soaks up stuff, okay, like a napkin, or if you do mix it on your pillow, then it's probably going to, it could suck some of the chemicals out of the body filler and into the soft porous item that you're mixing it on. That's the reason why you hear guys saying don't mix on cardboard. Now, I'm not going to go down the argument of should you mix on cardboard or should you not mix on cardboard argument, but a lot of guys will have that argument because they say it draws it out. So what's excellent things to mix body filler on? Well, a piece of metal, a mixing board, or epoxy primer. Epoxy primer seals up, locks down, and makes a very hard surface that locks stuff down. So epoxy primer is excellent to mix on top of. And instead of dirtying up a mixing board and having to clean it up and all that, you're working on a giant mixing board. So why not just mix it right on your door? So this is just one coat. That was a lot of filler to work with. Now, clearly, we're going to have a low, the whole entire door where them two pieces go together. I even had a comment on a previous video that he did door skins, and it kind of wanted to roll in. Okay, mine did too. So when they bend this metal across here, they stamp one piece. It's kind of arched. When you cut it right here, it's going to want to go ahead and spring in like that. So mine basically did the same thing. And then when you weld in the new piece, it's going to kind of have to be formed to it, as you've seen we use self-tapping screws. But here is where we have to transfer from this body line to we have to taper into the center of the door skin. So the bottom of this door from body line up is going to have to be skimmed. There's no way around it. Now, if you want to hang a whole entire door skin, do it. If you want to replace your doors, do it. I've showed you and went over on this project of how we are not doing that kind of stuff and how we are just doing basically a really good, solid daily driver level restoration. Beyond what the metal guys want to argue, body filler and primers are really the only way to get a car laser straight. You can sit there and tap and play on that metal all you want all day long, but you're going to need some body fillers and primer to really get that thing straight. Man, it is really starting to come down out there. All right, so that step right there with the buffer will get you pretty freaking straight. Like that big 8-inch pad really gets you straight. You could definitely feel it's wavy, but these doors had just so much distortion in them that it really gets you really good. Now, normally I'd go ahead and swipe these again from body line to body line, then start blocking. However, it's almost 4 o'clock. I'm out of here at 4:30 every day, and I'm not gonna go to the paint store to get more body filler this afternoon. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put a little bit of blocking on the centers of these just to go ahead and get a little bit ahead for tomorrow. But normally, I just want to point it out, normally I would not be blocking in this stage. I would again swipe a very thin coat down from body line to body line, and then I would block that thin coat. It's not going to hurt to go ahead and block at all. You can see we got into some of the old filler, but we did hit metal there, which I love. We hit metal there and metal there, so that means that we're not like super thick. We're probably under 1/8 of an inch or so, but I normally would want something else on here to block, but it's not gonna hurt anything. It's not gonna hurt anything at all to go ahead and block between coats. It's just, this thing is gonna wear your arms out, so think about that. Do as little blocking as you can, or save it until the end, because you're gonna be tired, dude. So use the buffer as much as you can to really get this thing roughed in before you really start trying to fine tune stuff. All right, this morning we went ahead and got our first big swipe over the whole panel from body line to body line after long blocking yesterday. Now we're gonna go back and we'll have to clean up all these lock holes and stuff like that. These first couple of coats get really messy. You could try to tape stuff up if you want, but I've learned over time that it's best really with something this rough, is just get in there and get it done. Now this one we went ahead and sanded out. We've still got 2 bodywork around these. We need to get a swipe over this. The top right here shouldn't need any filler. Should have enough primer build up that as we block it, it should straighten out. When we get towards the end, if we need to add a little bit of dolphin glaze or something to the top, we can, but we're not worrying about that. We're worrying about this body line to the bottom of the door. So I kind of work these in stages. So I've worked this body line is flat, and I've got this thing really nice with the DA sander. Now I did just recently switch over sanders, and if you're looking for a good sander, this one from Harbor Freight was on sale, I think for $20 or $30 the other day. It is absolutely solid unit. So we started out years ago with one of these, and then we were using the other cheap one, which they discontinued. So if you have one of these, guys, go ahead and get rid of it and go, as soon as the sale happens, go buy one of these, because this thing is way better, night and day. They've improved them. Now we also switched back this morning to a little bit higher end filler. This is U-Pull lightweight gold. And the reason why I did this is previously we were working basically over top of all of our epoxy primer. Now as we start sanding, you're going to have a ton of cut through. You can't work around it. Like, there's going to be cut through everywhere. I previously told you that you can go straight over metal if you have a direct to metal filler, and that's what this is right here. It's a direct to metal filler. So this is the part number. This also sands easier, but it is more expensive. I think it's almost double the price of the other stuff. A lot of people get obsessed with the filler. All fillers work. The difference is how hard it makes you work. Some of them are very hard to sand, and they just really tire you out. They don't sand smooth. But even the $20 Bondo garbage from Advanced Auto Parts or your big part store will work if you're in a pinch. It's just that stuff sands like concrete. So if you get you a nice lightweight filler, it's going to sand really good. Now, this stuff is not designed to be super thick. If you're doing something really thick, which you probably shouldn't be doing, but if you're doing a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick of filler, you need to use a filler that is like reinforced with fiberglass strands in it. You'll have to go to your local supplier, discuss what products they have available, or look on Amazon and check out what products are available and find what works best for you. But for us, normally in a body shop, we are getting the metal close enough that everything that we do is pretty much perfectly fine with a lightweight filler. It sands easy, it's easy to work with, and it's going to make your job and your day a whole lot easier. All right, so I got these, just a little bit of tape so we don't blow primer all down inside where the seals go. I don't want to have to sand and clean that all out. These are going to go through epoxy primer one more time on the outside, just because we have a decent amount of cut through on here. We could use a DTM, which is a direct to metal primer, but I really don't like using that. Normally, some of this is still high, like this right here. So the bodywork is not done on this, but the amount of primer coats that we're about to put on here, probably 2 epoxies and 2 high builds, honestly, it might block out. We sanded all of this out with 180, so everything's basically in 180 now. We've stepped it down. And we're going to go ahead and get it all locked down, and then we're going to see if it blocks out. If it don't block out, we'll have a couple of areas that we'll need to pick down with the pick hammer, and then do a little bit more body work. And then if we aren't having a ton of metal showing, then we could just continue with our high build. So far, all we have on this door is 2 coats of epoxy, body filler, and now we're going to do 2 more epoxy coats and 2 high build primer coats. Then we're going to be flipping the door over tomorrow or so and starting all the body work around the edges just to clean the edges up, and a bunch of high build primer around the edges, because that's going to be your best bet over body filler. All right, so we've got a lot of primer hammered on this thing. Now all this needs to shrink back and tighten up. So that's what we're going to do. Now we've got something that we can see what we're doing. So now we're going to be looking for pinholes when we go to sand, and imperfections that then we can dolphin glaze. It's very, very hard to see what you're doing when it is all not one color. You'll realize that, and then you'll go to paint your panel and you'll be like, crap. As soon as you wet it out, you'll start to see pinholes and everything. That's what dolphin glaze is for, finishing putty is for, is to fill in the pinholes from the mixing process of the body filler. Having everything one color will also start to let you see your body lines. You know, make sure your body lines are crisp. Building up a bunch on the edge will allow you to start fine sanding your edges. It'll fill in all the little imperfections. That's why we're going to flip this door and prime the inner edges from the backside so it fill it in. But it's just very hard to start to see your lines and stuff whenever it's so many different colors and so many different layers of body filler and metal and everything else. So next morning, we're going to go ahead and cut this open with 180 grit on the DA, and then we're going to flip it and start working on the backside. Basically, the top layer can kind of harden up, and then all the layers underneath it will have a harder time drying. If that makes sense, it'll take longer. So if you go ahead and just cut the top layer open, then it will definitely help. But I want to show you guide coat. We got guide coat all over it, and this is an extreme example that I never get to show of what guide coat does. So it shows us our harsh 36 grit scratches that are in here, and it also shows us some pinholes that are in here. So this is why guide coat is so important to use, is because you'll be able to see all of these flaws. All right, so we got this one is all blocked out, basically sanded around all the edges. man, when you got these crisp black lines right here on these edges, it looks amazing. So we got some cut through. This is the reason why we're going to put another coat of primer over it. And then all this in here is actually slick, but it's just cut through where it's like the old edge of the paint and stuff that wasn't 100% stripped off. And this darker gray is actually epoxy primer. So definitely one more coat over it. We got a little bit of bodywork. The only spot I'm not happy with this right here. So when the DA is running down the side of it, this is basically what it gets. In order to get this, you would have to physically, and you can tell with your hand what you're doing, you'd have to physically tilt the DA to get that. And if you got to tilt it, then you're having to make it roll, and that means it's not going to look great. So we mentioned this just a few ago that we might have a problem here, and sure enough we do. So we're going to re-bodywork this corner right here. But besides this door turned out amazing. Got some cut throughs that we had to sand down a little aggressively to get some stuff out, but that's again where our flow coat is going to help. And then now you can really see the outline of where our door handles, our locks and everything goes, and they're beautiful. They're nice and crisp. You know, there's not no buildup or anything, which that was actually stripped all the way down to metal, so I knew there wasn't no buildup. But everything else looks really good. The edges have enough buildup on them where they can be sanded. So we're going to bodywork this before it gets flipped. Now, a lot of metal guys hate this tool right here because this is like a body guy's hack. But this is for like knocking down highs. And that's why we see metal here, because this is a high. So we're just going to gently take this and hit this. And we want to dent this down. And any metal guy is going to absolutely hate that. They're definitely going to talk crap about this. Because I want to feel a slight dent, which I really don't feel a dent. I can feel where the points are hitting it, but it's not wanting to really dent. There we go. We have a slight dent right there, which is what we want. Very small dent. And then that way the filler will fill it in. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. So now what we're gonna do is go ahead and scuff this up, and then we're gonna re-swipe this whole corner and then start blocking this corner out. And then hopefully next time we block this thing, we'll be 100% pretty much primer and slick and good to go. And we're gonna move on to the back side of the doors. All right, so just like we did on our inner wheel tubs, we went ahead and seam sealed this. As you can see, as I'm putting it on, this seam sealer is basically hiding some rust. Now, I'm not hiding it from the owner because the owner knows it's there and chose not to replace the door and just to do the bottom 7 inches of the door skins, which I agree with for a driver. I think that this guy is very smart, and I think that he will enjoy this car and not be financially strapped, as a lot of guys get carried away, or shops convince them that they need to do this and they need to do that, and then they end up financially strapped and, you know, in a car that they got so much in it that they would never be able to get it back out of. And I think this guy's extremely smart because he chose not to go that route and instead just make a good driver. Now this covered up absolutely amazingly all the rust that's down here, but you'll never see this corner. This is the hinge corner. When you're in and out of the car, you're never going to see this front unless you roam the ground of the car. But back in here, with the doors open, you could see this. So his door jamb areas, when his doors are open, are going to look really good. The texture is going to fade out, and by the time he gets everything put in there, seals and all that up here, it's just going to look absolutely phenomenal. Now we're also going to go over top of this with some primer, a pretty thick coat, probably run it, honestly, on purpose. We're going to kind of prime around the door jamb right here because I want it really puddled up. It's kind of the best way. Body filler's a nightmare to work with in there. And then that way we can just lightly sand it, and it's really going to help even camouflage even better, you know, that these were altered. Really, honestly, we could just paint it just as is, but I think we're going to put a little primer over it. All right, so previously we got our doors, all the body work on them done, and we got them in primer. Now this past Friday, I didn't really record, but we got everything caught up with a really good coat of a DTM, a direct to metal primer. All DTM is basically when you're doing a bunch of body work, if you cut through the metal, this is primer that will stick to the metal, but it will also stick to properly prepped surfaces. So if you've sanded the whole door out, you have cut throughs, it's going to stick to both things. It's not the exact same as epoxy primer. It's a little bit different, and it's not a filler primer. A filler primer is thicker and fills in scratches, whereas this DTM tends to lay out slicker, and it just does not high build as good at all because it's not high build primer. So being we were not really chasing scratches and not really chasing flaws this far into the game, I had some DTM. I was out of filler primer. I decided to just roll with the DTM primer. It worked perfect for this situation. It laid out nice and slick. And this morning, we're prepping the doors for paint. So we got this one completely done over here this morning. It's been so nice and peaceful here. Listen to that. You can hear the birds. If your body shop is any more chaotic than this, then I honestly feel bad for you. Because this is what peace sounds like. And man, it's a beautiful morning. So we got the doors completely done, and on this one, this is ready for paint. I want to take you along with that one to show you the steps that we take to get these caught all the way up. There's multiple steps I do in prepping. I've got the insides. I mean, they are amazing for what they were. Good Lord. So these are straight out the booth, okay? Nothing on them, and we're going to start with a guide coat. We're going to get our guide coat on this, and then I'm going to hit this with a 320 on the DA sander just to knock the bulk of it down on the flats, just the flats. I'm not worried about the curves or anything like that. We're going to do some hand blocking and different grits, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps that I do. Normally Eddie's in the background doing a bunch of stuff, but it is the end of March, and Eddie is on his second vacation of the year. So he's been gone since like Wednesday. And so it's just been me. It's been nice and peaceful and quiet and not really anybody bugging me, which is super freaking nice. I'm gonna get this guide coat put all over everything this time. That way we can see all the flaws. This will be our last chance, absolutely last opportunity to fix anything that we see. Any flaws that you should see now should be very minor, and they should be able to be fixed with dolphin glaze and a little bit of rattle can primer. Normally I don't use rattle can primer, but when you're this far along in the game and you're literally just covering up tiny spots, this is where rattle can comes in okay. It's not the end of the world if you use rattle can. We're not busting out the paint gun and putting more primer on this door this far in the game now unless something really bad happens. And these doors just look absolutely beautiful, honestly. First step, we're just going to throw some 320 on the DA and knock down just the flat. The flats go from this body line to this body line on this door. That's all I'm able to do with the DA, and then I still have to block behind the DA. But everything else, if you start putting the DA on anything else this far in the game, you're really going to mess up your finish. Basically, that's all I can do with the DA sander is just in flats. This thing, being it spins in a circle like that, if you get it into the curves and stuff, this outer edge right here is going to dive into it, and you're going to have half moon shapes in your finish when you go to do the clear coat. Now, you can block that out with the clear coat, but it's going to make your job way harder. So just do the flats with the DA on the final sand, or if you really want to push that sandpaper, just don't use the DA at all. Hand block everything. There are some jobs that we hand block everything, but if I'm pretty confident that that panel is completely straight and completely flat, then I'll just normally do the DA and then hand block it. Basically, the DA knocks out 95% of the sanding, and then all I got is that last little bit of 5%, and the block is not actually flattening the panel. The block is just getting rid of the outer marks of the DA that the DA will leave behind. So makes your job a lot easier, saves a little bit of time, makes you not hate doing this so much, because you got to remember, when we do the clear coat, I don't use the DA on the sanding of the clear coat on the wet sanding buff process. It's all pushing paper. So every single panel that we wet sand and buff gets at least 2 to 3 different grits of all pushed by hand sandpaper, and I'm trying to cut down on the amount of arm work that I have to do on every single one of these panels. Now, I'm going to use a combination of air to kind of blow the dust off the panel and keep the sandpaper a little clean. I think it works good. Dry sanding with a block drives me insane. It is the one step that absolutely drives me insane. I don't like how the sanding dust gets caught between that and the paper. There's no water to flush it out, so I use the air basically to blow it out. Now, the block that I grab whenever I do this is my most wore out block. It's really thin. It's not thick like a new one. It's wore out. It's extremely flexible. I've had this thing for a long time. I got like 2 of these. They're worth gold because in situations like this, I don't really want a flat block. I want a block that's extremely flexible, that won't put gouges in it. I don't want anything fancy. I don't want one of the curved ones. I do all my body work with just this. All of these blocks you see on YouTube, Facebook, all these long blocks like that, it's nonsense, man. All them companies are doing is just trying to sell you freaking product. I like all the old school guys. I don't like the new school nonsense. I actually hate the new school nonsense, to be quite frank with you. So all these big fancy builders that are showing off and all this stuff, don't even pay attention to them. Stick to the old school guys. We're going to just take this sandpaper and we're just going to put it in this block like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it on in the way that the sandpaper is naturally curved. And then I'm going to fold it over, and then I'm going to take my block and I'm just going to squish it like this. Okay, I want this piece to be round. Okay, this paper is kind of sticking to this block. It don't stick great, but it is sticking. So once you curve it like that, it kind of wants to hold its shape, and that's about perfect for the bottom of this door, how it's curved. And you can also just flex it while you're sanding it to make sure that you're getting the center cut 100%. right, so this curve in here, this is where we start pushing some wet paper. From here on out, it's all wet sandpaper. I'm not really too picky about what grit we use. I buy a bunch of stuff that's on clearance and on sale, and I just stock it and store it, and then we just use it. I'm not really locked into having to have one grit. My grit that I actually purchase normally, like for the actual bodywork, would be an 80 grit, a 180 grit, and a 320. So if you're trying to buy some paper, I recommend 80 grit, 180, and 320. If you want something a little slicker, maybe bump it up to 600 grit. I think that's what this is. Yeah, this is 600 grit. These were on clearance at Advance for like $2, these packs. So we basically just been cutting them up and using them up. When they run out, we might be wet sanding with 800. It don't really matter. Now, when we do the wet sanding process, I'll also go over with you the grits that I actually go out to purchase. But anything in between, we just use whatever I happen to have around that I purchased on clearance from somewhere. And I buy a lot of stuff. Advance Auto Parts has a lot of stuff actually on clearance on their website. If you know how to find it, you can get really big discounts, like really good. So I'm gonna just use my fingers on this. There's no block or nothing, and we're just gonna go in here and sand out this curve. We're gonna do all the edges. We're gonna do the window frame. We're gonna basically do everything now by hand, besides again that flat. That flat will switch back to a block, and we will wet sand it with an actual wet sanding block. But all this curve right here, you're just gonna, they make little curved blocks and stuff, but you're not gonna see this stuff. By the time the clear is on this and it's all put together, like, it's gonna look amazing, and there's just absolutely no reason to waste your time or money on some of these blocks when your finger, your thumb, 2 fingers, whatever will fit perfectly fine. Now, you'll get the argument of people saying you're digging trenches in with your fingers. You can. So if you were to do this flat panel like this, then you're technically going to be digging trenches in the material everywhere your fingerprint was putting pressure down on. But on something so small like this, a radius like this, or around the windows or the edges, dude, you are not keeping your finger in the same spot for long enough to dig any trenches or any indentions in the primer or the clear coat when it comes to the wet sanding process. At this point, we're also going to go ahead and get all of our edges, make sure there's no rough or sharp spots, which there shouldn't be this far along. I hate using this paper because it don't fit on the block right, no matter which way you do it. It's a pain in the butt. So I just wrap it around like this. But again, if this paper was $6 or $8 a sleeve, then I paid like $1.25 or 75 cents for the same exact sleeve on clearance. So we'll use this up. We're gonna push it at basically 45s. I normally don't do straights. I will around the edges, but then I still come back into them at 45s. So I'll kind of line out the edge like this. And then basically everything else will be kind of at 45s, making X patterns. All right, for the inside, we've got just Dawn dish soap, a bucket of water mixed together. Now, all I do on the inside, because my primer is already laid out so slick, is I'm just gonna scuff it up. I'm gonna scuff it up really aggressive, a little bit more than normal. Now, if it's like really rough, you can take a little bit of your wet sandpaper, that little piece that we were using around the edges and stuff earlier, and you can smooth it out. But this Scotch-Brite on primer actually will cut off a lot of primer. Like, if you kept doing it in one spot, you could actually cut through the roof. Sometimes I can cut down hard edges with just Scotch-Brite. I only use the burgundy, not the gray. I used to use the gray when I started out. It's finer, but I can Scotch-Brite cars with the burgundy and paint right over top of it, where a lot of people kind of brainwashed me at first, like people I was talking to, and they're like, oh, you have to use the gray Scotch-Brite or it will leave scratches and you'll see it in the clear coat. And it's just simply not true. So all I buy now is just burgundy. All right, so now that we got them in our booth, we're gonna just take wax and grease remover and just wipe them down just to take off kind of the dust and where we touch them. We're just gonna wipe it down like that, and then we're gonna blow it down also before we start actually painting. Okay, now what I'm laying down first is scrap paint, okay? So this is a bunch of different really dark colors, almost black, mixed together. And what this does is this lets me get coverage on my panel. Now, if this was a different color, sometimes this saves you money on paint. But what this does is kind of like a test run. So if I'm gonna have any fish eyes or any problems, then it's gonna be with scrap paint, okay? And this is all still Omni, same stuff we use. Once I get this everything fully covered and everything looks good, then I'm gonna go in it with our legit paint. This is the real deal. This is the actual color. So by doing this lays me down a foundation that I have no money in. Now, I have quickly learned that this is the most important piece to prepping your panels for paint. Believe it or not, even though we just wiped them down with wax and grease remover, they are absolutely covered in trash. I no longer use a tack rag either because they're just kind of sticky and they still can smear the stuff. This right here, I use my hand and an air blower, and I run over the whole panel over and over until I feel no more trash. All right, so now after 2 coats of a drop coat, we've got good coverage. Now we're gonna put 2 coats of our actual base coat color on there that the car is going. Then it will be clear coat time. All right, clear coat. I use Omni 270. This is a production clear. If the insurance company pays to have your brand spanking new $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 vehicle repaired, they're using a production clear. The body shop is. If this is good enough for your daily driver, Denali, Escalade, Range Rover, whatever, then this is good enough for a car that's going to be only driven on the weekends probably and kept in a garage. This is what I explain to my customers. This is how you save money, okay? There's no reason to be shooting $1,000 clear high solids. We're gonna put 3 coats of this Omni 270 on here, and I always get really good results with it. We're gonna cut and buff it all out, and this thing will look absolutely amazing. I've done some really good looking jobs with this, and I have no complaints. I've used this for over 10 years. I try my best to avoid high solids clears. I try to steer the customers away from high solid clears. This is $190 a gallon. High solid clear might be $1,000 a gallon and up for some of the stuff that shops try to sell you. Your job is overpriced because they're selling you a ridiculous level clear that you don't need, and then they're marking it up also. So your car's sitting in your garage doing car shows, driving it on weekends. Why does it need better clear coat than your daily driver? Doesn't make sense to me, but I guess each their own. Everybody's always like, I would charge more for that job. Well, stop selling your customers clear that costs 8 times as much as acceptable clear, and you wouldn't have to charge more for that job. All right, let's see what we got. So we even did 3 coats on the door jambs. They look really good. I'm hoping there's no runs. There's no runs up here, but runs are brutal when you get them around them things. All inside there looks amazing. Man, this thing looks good. I gotta ask the customer about the piece up top. I don't know if he wants to keep that same color car or go with the satin black. If it was like a red or a blue, you would definitely go with a black on the top. I think satin black is the correct thing. A lot of people have it like gloss black, but I would go satin black. So that looks really good. Them door jambs turned out amazing for how little work we did to them. I mean, we put the bottoms on, but we didn't do like a bunch to them. Man, that looks good. That looks really good. This thing is gonna cut and buff out. Freaking amazing. The reflection looks good. The orange peel is not too high. All the edges look good. We got inside all the tracks. Man, them things turned out freaking amazing. So that's the doors. So that's how to repair your doors, bodywork your doors, put your doors through paint. That's all of the rough stuff. No matter what you are working with, make sure you read your data sheets, your tech sheets, because each product will be different on what it calls for. We're continuing to moving forward, and if you want to know how to cut and buff them, we're also going to have a video where we're actually reviewing a buffer, and I'm going to go over the steps that we use to cut and buff our paint. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch y'all on the next video. Thanks, y'all.